Thanks, Chair. Thanks. Probably won't need all that. Slightly kind of surreal circumstances because I normally wouldn't moralise in relation to attendance at kind of debates, but this is pretty pathetic, I have to say. It's really, really poor attendance from other TDs, so it's kind of it's a pity now, I have to say, because it's obviously a very, very important subject. Minister, I just want to first of all thank the fantastic work of the OPLA and others in our party in relation to this bill. I think it's a very, very, very good bill, very timely bill, and as Deputy Boyd Barrett has said, it has, migrant workers were kind of, there was a light shined on them in relation to COVID, and they suffered very, very badly in relation to the circumstances and environments that they have lived in. And the basic rights of workers in relation to this bill, the composition of workers is in the meat process and horticulture and dairy sectors. And these sectors are worth an enormous amount of money. The meat processing sector alone is worth €4 billion to the Irish economy. And out of 70% of those that work in that industry are migrants. So that is a big chunk of people that, mainly from Eastern Europe, some parts in Brazil, that would come to Ireland to, live a better life and work. And we should know all about that. Irish people went all over the world and were terribly exploited in some cases, really badly exploited. But through that, people, workers organised themselves, regardless of what your nationality. They are organised through unions, through strikes, and that kind of crossed the borders of jingoism and racism, and all that kind of divides people, where the ruling class tried to divide people. But when you're a worker, it's kind of almost irrelevant what your nationality is if you have a bad employer. So that's good. And I want to commend the unions in this country that have tried to organise workers in this sector. It's a very, very difficult sector to organise because of the kind of the nature of the job. But I think I want to commend the unions of doing that. Just the main thrust of the bills is in relation to employment permits and giving workers a right to switch employer after 6 months. I think that's very, very important, because workers are sometimes like, I suppose it's like almost latter-day kind of slavery almost, where workers are tied to an employer. And that goes on, Minister, where workers are brought to this country and they're employed for a certain amount of time, and they're almost like a serf almost. And I think that's very, very important. And also access to sick pay. I think that's very, very important. As was highlighted during COVID, workers that were really badly sick. And I know this because there was actually a meat processing plant in Clondalkin where workers were very, very sick. Some had to, in some ways, had to still go into work in relation to the condition, because they had no kind of backup, and they had to go into work, and that's a pretty dire situation. So just to conclude, I think, as I said, I think this bill is a really, really good bill. It shines the light on migrants in this country that play a huge positive part in relation to Ireland. And it's in the last 25 years, migrants have transformed this country into a kind of, a welcoming country, a kind of country that kind of welcomes people regardless if you're in an urban environment or a rural environment, because workers were going into places that, mostly foreign migrants weren't going into because of the nature of the job. And they work very, very hard. They love Ireland in some cases, but there are cases, Minister, and there's no getting away from this, there is cases where migrant workers are extremely badly paid, badly exploited, and that has to be addressed. Now, I think this bill does address them issues. It goes further than what the government are saying, and I think migrants have to be protected, because what's important in all this is that migrants, regardless of your nationality, they're workers, They're like workers, Irish workers, because an injury to one is an injury to all. And if an injury is done to one worker, then that's an injury to another. And what has made the labour movement and trade unionism very, very strong is that togetherness, where, you know, if a worker has been exploited, if a worker has been put down, that togetherness is put to the employer. And that's what has, in our eyes as socialists, that has been the driving force of the labour movement. Regardless of your nationality, is where workers come together in solidarity, and you know, where there's exploitation, they challenge that exploitation. Mister, it's unfortunate because every time you're in front of us, you're always saying no to these bills. Hopefully one day you will say yes. But it's unfortunate that you're saying no in this case, but hopefully you might think again. Thanks.